With an introduction like that, let me see if I can live up to expectation. I speak extemporaneously because when I'm visiting a new place or country, I learn more than I teach. And my education went a step further when I went up for a cup of coffee a half hour ago, met 3 people who moved the industry 20 years forward with what they're doing. Sorry. The industry as it exists in Bangladesh now has real existential problems. You are commodity producers. You make T-shirts, you make cotton casual trousers, jeans, you make woven shirts. The only thing you don't seem to be making is underwear, but these are commodity producers. It's a tough business. There was a time when if you had a factory and if you made a decent product and shipped that product on time, you had a customer. Those were the days when you were making 12% net. They're gone forever. In today's world, if all you can do is produce a decent garment, ship it on time at a reasonable price, the customer will say, oh, over there's a line of 5,000 people who will do the same thing. If all you're doing is offering cheap labor, then maybe you shouldn't be surprised when the customer is beating you up on the CM. That's how it works. To make a viable industry, you have to move forward with the times. The problem that you face is the nature of the industry you have now doesn't allow you to move forward as you should. We are going into a second industrial revolution. 10 years from now, the industry, the production, will be totally unlike it's been at the present time. It's a repetition of what happened in the 18th century. It cannot work here. Imagine, if you would, the perfect machine. Imagine that you had a machine that reduced your labor by 100%. Doesn't get any better than that. Imagine today you employ 1,000 people, the cutters, the bundlers, the sorters, the sewers, the QC people, the pressers and the packers. Tomorrow, 0. Imagine, if you would, that the machine doesn't cost anything. Imagine that the machine will last 1,000 years. I mean, it doesn't get any better. Okay, ask yourself this. How much are you really going to save? What is the difference in the cost if you took out all the labor? You pay a worker $200 a month. That works out to 1.3 cents per SAM, per standard applied minute. We take a garment, we're saying this garment is a 44-minute garment, it's 56 cents. That's what you save when you cut out all your labor. You take the garment, and you're now going to ship it to the United States, and the average cost of the average FOB price on a woven shirt in the United States is $4.71, and you're paying 19.7% duty. You're paying the freight. You're paying the clearance charges and the local transportation. It's costing $1.30. You've saved 65 cents. The costs are double. What you're saying, it is better to take the machinery and move it to Mexico. Move it to Central America. And that's the basic problem you face. At $2,400 a month, if you buy a machine that costs $250,000 and you're paying at 5% interest and it's a 10-year amortization, that machine has to replace 13 workers. If you go to Europe, where the worker is paid a minimum of $25,000 a year, and you spend $1 million on the machine, you can make money with replacing 5 workers. The new technology with regard to the new machinery is going to bring about the greatest reshoring in the history of the industry. When the industry started moving out in the 60s and 70s, it's going to come back. And the first part of the industry that's going to move will be the basic commodities. Because robotic machinery does best with massive orders. This is the problem. What can you do to reduce your costs in the present circumstances? You have 2 possibilities. You have what are called tangible capital, which is machinery, software, and you have intangible capital, which includes engineering. I've been to factories where the garment from cutting to packing moves 1 kilometer, literally, with bottlenecks in between. You can do this by rearranging the factory and save a lot of money. More than that is productivity. In the West, we talk about productivity 2%. God forbid we should have 3% productivity, then have the champagne, bring it out, wonderful. Here, the best factories, ask yourself this, your productivity now, at best, is 50% of China. In many cases, you're talking about 40% of China. The second thing is the relationship between labor, that is the people who touch the garment, the cutters, the sorters, the bundlers, the sewers, the pressers, the packers, and everything else. The other workers, the MD's chauffeur-driven limousine, the flack for his mistress, it's all included in overhead. In the West, the ratio between direct labor and overhead is maybe 60%. Overhead is about 60% of labor. Why? Because you're paying the worker a lot of money, and the overheads are not that great. Here, where you're paying the worker at best 1/10 of what you're paying them in the West, and where it costs more to turn on the electricity in Dhaka than it does in New York City, your overhead is between 300 and 600% of labor. Don't take my word for it. When you go back to the factory, talk to your accounting people and ask them to create it for you. This means that if you can increase productivity from the 45 minutes to the 33 minutes, a 30% increase in productivity, you're going to save 83 cents. It doesn't come out of the worker particularly, it comes from the overhead. The overhead goes down from $1.40 to 98 cents per unit. It's a matter of simple arithmetic. Increase the productivity, you're still going to get paid 5 cents per SAM, per SAM, but you're going to make, instead of making 5%, 24 cents, you're going to be making 66%. Instead of making 5%, you're going to be making 15% with the same structure. That is the present time. But where are you going to go for the future? The factory is not a closed box. Improving the factory, making productivity better, cleaning up the factory, that's good, but that's not what it's about. It's about externalities. It's what does the customer want? What are we going to give the customer? This is where the money is, because this is what the customer needs. As Ram Serene pointed out, if you can take on the product development, the immediate savings is remarkable. Not only is the immediate savings remarkable, but you get a better product because you don't have the gaps and disconnects. When the customer sends you a sample, and a spec sheet, and a tech sheet, God forbid what else, you're looking at it, and the first question that comes out is, well, the factory can't make this one. And so everybody's changing it. The technical designer changes what the designer said. It goes to the buying office, and the buying office merchandiser changed it. And then it goes to the factory changed it. By the time you get it into the store, the garment looks nothing like the sketch. The new technology The new technology brings with it product integrity. The tools. We're talking about the new software. We're talking about speed to market. We're talking about moving commodities to fashion. Those are the tools. I'll tell you the real benefit. And this is what we discussed when I was trying to have coffee and failed to have coffee. You have to have an operation where you are talking to the designer at the customer's place. And you want to build a relationship based on two things. The first thing is the hit rate. What percentage of the orders that you're receiving from this customer came from work that your people contributed? And the second one, and this only works with Europeans, Americans won't tell you, is the sell-through. What was the markdown rate? The cost of the markdown, that is the difference between the price on the hang tag and what the consumer actually paid for the garment, is the greatest cost of the garment. It is more than the delivery duty paid price. If you could reduce the markdown, then they're going to make money. I was working 2007 in Mauritius and our customer was Philip Green, St. Philip Green, and when we were finished, our markdown rate with Topshop and Topman was 4.77%. It didn't matter what the FOE price was. Nobody cared. How much money was he making from us? And we discovered all the rules we'd been taught about T-shirts for young people. You couldn't charge more than 10 pounds, 20 pounds. We had T-shirts that were selling it for 70 and 80 pounds, and people in their 20s were buying it. Because we had trial orders, we were working directly with the designer, and by the time I finished the project, the hit rate was over 60%. They couldn't get along without us. Actually, later on, after I left the project, my client got mad at me because Topshop hired away our designer, our factory designer who was stationed in London, and hired them to be their designer. And they got the Chinese guys, the Hakka people, got angry at me. I said, "What are you getting angry for? You still have the same designer, and this time I'm not even paying her. Topshop is paying her. Where is she going to go? Where is she going to find another factory that will make anything and will ship in 16 days?" And this was a vertical operation. The good news, located in Mauritius, but the good news, it was fine gauge cut and sew. You put it into an airplane. You know, this is the future. And there are companies here, at least from the people I was having coffee with, that are looking at this now. They just have to go the next step. They're already talking to the designer. They just have to start looking at the hit rate. They have to start looking at the sell-through. They have to start talking to the people in the customer's place who care only about money. That's why Philip Green was such a great customer. He didn't care what the hell we did as long as he made his money. In the end, he was making more money from this factory than any other factory. You have to change your industry. You're not going to be in the commodity business. You're not going to be shipping T-shirts, basic jeans. You can't do that. You have to move ahead. You have to move into fashion. You have to go into the domestic business. One of the great things about India is that 90% of Indian garment production stays in the country. People go to work in India and they pay a premium to work in India, not because of the production, which has problems I don't even want to talk about. It's about the design. It's about the aesthetics. It's one of the places in the world where you really can do product development. You have to move in that direction. You have to sell domestically. You have a free trade agreement with India. Nobody likes it, and believe me, I know the problems of the non-tariff barriers and everything of that sort, but that's your future. If you go this way, 10 years from now, you will be at the cutting edge of the industry, because to do this, to succeed at this, you need the product development software. You need then you will need the new robotic machinery. You will be operating factories which will have single layer cutting, and it will be fast enough and cheap enough to compete with anything. You will have the factory of the future, and that's what survival is about. In the end, everything you do requires people. They are your greatest asset. You have to develop your people. The problem is the software is out there, but you need the people to operate it. The computer machinery is out there, but you need the people to operate. And you have to do this by putting money into your people. If you put money into your people, you're looking after the best asset that you have. Thank you.